Hello, everyone. Greetings to you from cold South Africa and wishing you all the best at the Ecsite conference in lovely sunny Malta. I'm sorry I'm not able to be there with you in person, but I hope that you're having some very interesting conversations. This session really is looking at the place of Indigenous knowledge in science museums. And where do we begin this interesting conversation? Science museums aim to amplify the explanatory power of science, but often fail to answer the profound question of whose knowledge is it anyway? This is because of their historical and contemporary modes of operation, inherently and predominantly as sites of Eurocentric hegemonic knowledge, communication, and cultural imperialism. This is a shared burden of science museums in both the global north and south regions of the world due to the legacies of colonialism. Thus, in both the global north and south, they suffer from the same lack of localized contexts in terms of being truly reflective and inclusive of the socio-cultural contexts and or racial diversity, epistemic traditions, and norms of their diverse local communities. Indigenous knowledge systems address the constructivist perspective in how diverse audiences can find meaning and relevance in science museums. This short presentation offers ways for science museums to engage diverse communities through utilizing indigenous knowledge systems to engender epistemic inclusion and enrichment. In plotting a way forward, myself and 30 other colleagues from across the globe, North and South regions of the world, have got together to produce a groundbreaking book volume, which will be published shortly in July, entitled Race and Sociocultural Inclusion in Science Communication, Innovation, Decolonization, and Transformation. And I would like to share with you all some of the key learnings and good practice strategies from this book that relate to science museums. I am also delighted that authors of 3 chapters in the book, Amparo, Mohammed, and Tibise, are taking part in this session and will be sharing further insights during the session. The first aspect of what we have learned and shared in this seminal book is that science museums are increasingly confronted by the need to authentically reflect how diverse publics conceive of and construct STEM knowledge. In an expanding and globalized world, many communities feel alienated by academic and Western-dominated science discourse because it does not reflect them or their knowledge gained through ancestral traditions and lived experiences with natural phenomena. Adults and learners can only achieve meaning in science museums when they can connect their selfhood to a diverse spectrum of knowledge, norms, traditions, and storytelling in these facilities. We have also learned through other aspects that challenge current perceptions of the history of science communication, through bringing to the fore the interrogation of science communication as a Western developed field, when in fact there are histories of knowledge sharing practices across the global South regions of the world that are much, much older, centuries older. Indigenous knowledge is knowledge that people have developed based on experiences tested through centuries of use. Indigenous knowledge helps us to realize that there are different ways of viewing the natural world and gaining knowledge about our place within it. Science museums thus face the challenge of delivering inclusive narratives and representations with regard to exhibits and artifacts, and the need to contextualize knowledge with and for their diverse local communities. However, the major concern seems to be that the epistemic dominance of Western Eurocentric knowledge is so imposing in these institutions that many simply either do not or cannot overcome its pervasive influences on how they operate as brokers of inclusive and decolonized knowledge from and for all. So what good practices have we learned from science museums that have worked to overcome these challenges and have advanced the delivery of inclusive and decolonized science knowledge from and for all? Firstly, science museums should intentionally engage with their visitors and diverse local communities to bring on board lay epistemologies and create an enabling environment that will engender the sharing and affirming of inclusive and decolonized knowledge from all sections of their communities, equally valued, welcomed, and engaged. Secondly, together with multiple stakeholders, including Indigenous knowledge holders, they should engage in respectful dialogue sessions to highlight and address critical questions around the role of science museums and how they can serve in ensuring that all voices are heard and diverse epistemic contributions valued. The end goal of these equitable and reciprocal partnerships should be that of igniting a collaborative community of practice for equitable, inclusive, and more welcoming science museums by having science content redesigned to meet the needs of their diverse communities. Science museums will thus be enabled and encouraged in their institutional frameworks to decolonize the existing pedagogical, cultural, and intellectual structures, challenge and diversify their STEM narratives, and create collaborative accessibility as a bridge to participation and engagement, especially for the youth and adults from underserved communities. Finally, this book fully captures and articulates the shared burden of responsibility that science museum practitioners in both the global North and South bear with regard to the challenges of delivering inclusive knowledge from and for all across these diverse regions of the world, and how, through mutual learning, equity, and decolonized approaches, they can work together to deliver a transformed science museum field fit for purpose for the 21st century and beyond. Thank you, and I wish you the best of this session and the rest of the Ecsite conference.